Man, I don't even know where to start today. Like, there's some good news and a whole bunch of bad. The good news is that we are not the United States. The bad news is that we are right next door. So I'm going to talk about some good news for Canada first, and then I'm going to talk about the enormous amount of bad news coming next week for the US. And then there's the tension of war. First, the good news. US Senate votes 50 to 46 to nullify Trump's tariffs on Canada, with 4 Republicans crossing the aisle. Yeah, this is largely symbolic. It doesn't mean anything. Even if the US Congress was in session, and they're not, and that's why next week is going to be a shit show. This doesn't mean anything. The current administration is a dictatorship run by a man-child, and they don't care about laws. Sweden Saab considering Canada for its Gripen jet assembly. Saab is looking to ramp up its production of the GlobalEye jet to meet demand from Ukraine. And there's been a lot of talk between Canada and Sweden regarding their military systems. I am 100% for using Swedish stuff rather than US stuff, because there is no reason to be optimistic about what's happening in the US. Like, by definition, things will have to get worse before they get better, because the administration that is in charge will remain in charge for the foreseeable future. The only way they're going to be taken down is by force, and that's literally things getting worse before they get better. Speaking of things getting worse, is Walmart closing on November 1st? The retailer faces $2 billion loss as SNAP payments freeze amid government shutdown. The USDA wrote on their website, bottom line, the well has run dry. At this time, there will be no benefits issued November 1st. Yeah, the US is so wonderful that more people than the total population of Canada are on SNAP benefits because they can't afford to eat. And now those SNAP benefits are going away. And it's such a big hit that Walmart may have to close. Just wrap your head around that for a sec. Also, I'm sure you've heard the news that their monthly cost for healthcare is going to jump by about tenfold. So as of next week, people will stop making car payments. They'll stop making mortgage payments. They won't be able to eat. It'll get ugly. And even though there's a Republican presidency and administration, and the Republicans have the majority in the Congress, and the Republicans have the majority in the Senate, they're blaming the Democrats. But don't worry, they're going to start testing nuclear weapons again. After a 33-year hiatus, they're going to test nuclear weapons. Like that's necessary. Also, they plan a show of force against Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. These people are full of bad ideas. And they're getting rid of the people in the military that have good ideas. Yeah, this seems to be like a weekly headline, that some top-tier general or admiral is leaving. I'm going to give you a little insight into why, at least why I think this is happening. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Unfortunately, I don't have a physical copy of this book. I have a digital copy of this book, but I highly recommend it. Especially the part about General Paul Van Riper. Paul Van Riper is a veteran of the Vietnam War and a military expert. And in 2002, before the US went into Iraq, they had a war game called the Millennium Challenge 2002. Paul Van Riper would be in charge of the opposition. He was Team Red. According to the scenario, a rogue military commander had broken away from the government somewhere in the Persian Gulf and was threatening to throw the entire region into war. That was the part Paul Van Riper would play. So the US military did what the US military does. They put in a whole bunch of rules and ran simulations, and it showed that Blue Team would absolutely destroy Red Team. Paul Van Riper didn't play by the rules. See, Blue Team figured that Red Team would be forced to use easily interceptable satellite communication. But Paul Van Riper knew that. So he relied instead on messages hidden inside prayers and motorcycles to communicate. Because he was schooled in military history, and he used World War II methodology to circumvent modern technologies that would give away his mood. On the second day of the game, Van Riper put a fleet of small boats in the Gulf to track ships of the invading Blue Team. Then, without warning, he bombarded the Navy in an hour-long assault with cruise missiles, and in the end, 16 ships were bottom of the Gulf. If it were a real event, 20,000 US soldiers would have lost their lives. Did the US take this loss in stride and change their strategy? No! Instead, they restarted the games and forced Red Team to follow a script. And now the United States is using one of these scripts in Venezuela. And I am positive that there are top military leaders who are trying to tell the United States that everything they're doing is a bad idea. But they're going to go ahead and do it anyway. So that top brass is going to step down and let someone else face the repercussions when all this stuff goes sideways. And it'll start going sideways next week.